In today's macro photography tutorial, I want to take a look at some of these light bulbs. I want to get some colourful and abstract shots of these strangely shaped glass objects. I'm not going to be turning them on, but I am going to be lighting them up. Stick around and I'll see you in just a sec. Hi guys, I'm Ben from AdaptLooks and welcome back to another macro photography tutorial where today we're taking a look at light bulbs. Now when you're photographing light bulbs, probably the first thing that you're going to think of to do is to plug it in and take a picture of the filament exposed for that glowing element on the inside of the bulb, and you'll probably get some really cool shots from that, but that's not what I'm doing today. I want to use these strangely shaped retro style light bulbs to create some interesting reflections of some colourful light from the outside. I think that's going to create some nice abstract shots that I can really get to grips with some external lighting, playing around with the reflective nature of the glass. Now, as I'm sure the vast majority of you guys know, the inside of light bulbs has changed quite recently. We no longer have those thin elements that glow and look really interesting in macro. Instead, we've got these slightly more complex but slightly less interesting LED tubes, which are now quite long, and especially in these retro style light bulbs can come in some very interesting configurations, but what we're looking at today is actually the configuration of the glass. So these retro style light bulbs that I've got are in a few different shapes and sizes, and it's the reflections on the outside of the glass that I want to focus in on. You can already see, if you look closely, that the reflections in my room of the windows and of my video lights are doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things as I move these glass objects around. And it's that I want to harness to create some abstract looking photographs. I want to use these long reflections and these bendy, distorted reflections and the weird reflections on the little pinpoint of glass on the top of this bulb to bend light and create interesting patterns while still maybe showing off a little bit of the detail of these bulbs, the screws and the interesting formations of LED tubes on the inside. The one thing I'm not going to do is turn on the lights. In fact, for a shoot like this, I'm actually going to turn out the lights. My big video lights just here are going to create all sorts of crazy reflections on my light bulbs, and my windows are going to add extra reflections as well. Maybe you can harness that, maybe you can put your bulbs next to a window or turn on some extra lights in your room to create those reflections, but I want to have full control over exactly where my reflections are going to be on my light bulbs. I want to take control over my lighting, so I'm going to turn off my video lights and block up my windows. Now, I am going to leave my video lights on for the time being, just so that you guys can see me in what I'm doing, but I will be turning them off when I'm ready to take my shots. I am going to be using some lighting though, and it's pretty important for the type of shot that I'm going for today. Those colourful shots that you saw on the thumbnail and in the intro, those are created by using some coloured light from the AdaptLooks studio. So for those of you that are maybe new to the channel, this is the AdaptLooks studio. It's a miniature lighting studio for macro photography and close-up creative applications, just like our abstract light bulb shoot today. It consists of the AdaptLooks Studio control pod, which is this part on the top here, and I've just attached that to a little mini tripod so that I can shoot on my table just here. I want to put my light bulbs down on the table and move my lighting all the way around it. The way that I'm going to be able to move and position my lighting is by using the flexible lighting arms of the AdaptLooks Studio. They're all magnetic and modular, so it's simply a case of plugging them into the control pod, and then we have some light. This light is actually green, so you can see that we're going to be able to create really quickly some interesting colourful lighting. I've got a red light here as well, and I can simply connect magnetically some diffusion onto the ends of these arms. Let's try a blue light as well, and position them all the way around my bulbs to create some very interesting lighting. So I've now got red, blue and green light pouring down onto my table. All that's left to add is a bulb and a camera. So I've added my camera down here with my macro lens just pointing at the bottom of my first bulb. With those three lighting arms that we just plugged in, the red, the blue and the green, all with diffusers attached, you can see that we're getting a really interesting, abstract, lit up, colourful image of the bottom of this bulb. The red is lighting the front and the blue and green are creating reflections in the glass just to give it a little bit of extra colour. Turning the video lights back on, you can see has made a big difference to the image here. It's a lot brighter, but a lot of that colour, the contrast and the interest has been lost in the photograph. Now blocking up all of your windows and leaving only the light that you really want in your photograph can leave you with a lot more control over exactly where to place those reflections, what colours to use, and ultimately how your image is going to turn out. Now, if you found your way here to a fairly obscure macro photography abstract tutorial, I'm going to presume that you already know the basics of how to set your camera settings and a little bit of composure. You know what you're probably looking for when you're setting up a shot like this. But when you first step into a shot with lots of glass reflections and wanting to capture those reflections, a factor that you might not be thinking about is actually the size of your light source. Now, I'm used to talking about this because the Adaptalux Studio is obviously a very small light source dedicated to macro photography, and the size of that light source is a big selling point. Usually the small light sources can get into tiny little spaces and provide a lot of light, but today we actually want a much larger light source. That's where our filters and diffusion comes in. So this is a diffuser, so if I place this onto a red lighting arm, it's going to glow red, but we also have color filters, so I could place this blue color filter onto a white arm. What that's going to do is spread out and enlarge my light source. So where this would be a pinpoint light of an LED, it's actually going to become this much larger, well, it's almost like a bulb, isn't it? And that is going to spread out the reflections on our proper bulb. It's going to distort things and give that glass an opportunity to change the look of our light source. If we were just using the individual LEDs, we would have a very bright individual point, a specular highlight on the reflection, maybe a couple bouncing around on the inside, but that strange streaky color along the glass exterior would be lost. So using some filters and diffusers and placing them nice and close to your subject is actually going to improve the abstractness of your shot. So just to demonstrate that point, here's a similar shot to the one that we had earlier, but I've taken the diffusers off. You can see that those colors are no longer as pleasant. We've got a big pinpoint of the green light, which is creating a streak down the front of the image. It's overall just a lot less pleasant. If I go ahead and pop on those color filters again, we'll be able to see the old shot come back to life with those reflections of the light sources in the bulb. Now, you've just seen that happen, so you'll easily be able to recognize the shape of these light sources in the reflections, but to a viewer that doesn't necessarily know what type of light source you're using, those can look really abstract and they'll have a hard time trying to tell what is being reflected in the glass. That all adds to our abstract shot, making it look a little bit more otherworldly. Let's get back to my retro, weird looking bulbs. I even got a really long one here, they're all designed to hang upside down from Nest lights, and albeit different heights, different shapes, but they're all slightly tinted with a yellowish hue, so they're letting off a nice warm light, and they all have slightly different features to them. So this one here is actually got a silver screw thread, and the long one has a completely different layout of LED filaments on the inside. All of this is really interesting to explore in front of the lens. I do recommend putting your camera down on a tripod and moving the bulb around in front of the camera rather than going freehand, but you can absolutely set your bulb down, set your lighting up, and then explore with your camera looking at your bulb from different angles. I just prefer to set everything up and then move my subject around to try and find interesting spots. You can always adjust your focus and adjust your angle a little bit to look at different parts of your bulb, but we're not trying to make this look like a full light bulb. We're not showing off the fact that this is a whole light bulb. We're more than likely only going to be looking at maybe this front section or the back, or just looking in from the side to try and get those reflections to obscure the nature of the subject. If it looks like a light bulb, you're probably being a little bit too on the nose, and you might want to try and obscure it a little bit more. I've really been enjoying looking in from the bottom, capturing these screws, and then having strange reflections coming in from up here. With all of the different colors, it gives a sort of a neon futuristic vibe to the photographs. So as I said at the beginning, I wanted to try something a little bit different with my light bulbs. I wanted to create those abstract shots using some external light and the reflections of the bulbs themselves, rather than going that more obvious route perhaps of plugging them in and trying to expose for the filaments on the inside and playing around with the light that the subject itself creates. I think I really enjoyed just playing around with the nature of the glass and the reflections that it can create, especially when you have glass that's all different shapes like these bulbs. And that leads me to my final point, in that you don't really need to use light bulbs for this at all. You could go and get some glasses or cups from your kitchen or any other glass object that you have lying around and just play around with the reflections to create these abstract looks. All that you really need is some external light and the control over that light to be able to change the position, brightness, and the color. Let me know down in the comments what you think to this shoot. Was it what you were expecting? Would you have done it slightly differently to me? But either way, it would be really appreciated if you could leave a like for the video and hit the subscribe button so that you're here for more macro photography ideas, inspiration, and tutorials coming in the future. For now, that is all that I've got time for. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.